The soft glow of the white fluorescent light bulbs that hung across the ceiling provided a cool color from around the blank, empty, and gray concrete walls of the interrogation room. Little to no sound was present with the sole exception of buzzing noise coming from the light bulbs. The area itself was just as empty as ever. Only a few chairs and a table were in the middle of the room. Despite being devoid of any kind of proper furniture of any sort, there was one small blue penguin by the name of Pablo, who sat quietly in one of the chairs with a blank expression on his face. His entire body was almost covered in bandages, bruises, and an eye patch was covering one of his eyes. As he continued to sit quietly in his chair, the sound of the interrogation room's door opening practically woke him up from his trance he was in. "Good morning, Pablo," a well-dressed police officer said as he entered the room with a female detective. Pablo only nodded slightly before looking back down at the table. "Did you sleep well last night?" the female detective, a bright orange fox with blue eyes and painted pink claws, asked. "No," Pablo muttered under his breath. "I see, Pablo." The female detective grabbed a small pen and notebook from out of her pocket and began jotting down notes. "Well, do you remember who I am?" the detective asked. Pablo looked back at the detective and then back at the cop, who had bright smiles on their faces, and tried to remember. However, he had only met her once, so he had a rather hard time remembering her name. "I don't think so. Sorry," Pablo says, lowered his head in shame. "It's okay, Pablo. I understand that it takes a while to remember names. Plus, with all those wounds on you, I don't think remembering names is too far up on your list," the detective answered. "My name is Detective Maria Pablo, and over there is my officer David. Now, before we start with the interview, would you like to go somewhere more comfortable, Pablo? We only needed you in here so that we can run a few more tests and scans in the lab." Pablo looked up at the detective, smiling down on him, and shuffled a bit in his seat. He certainly wasn't very comfortable being in a dark, cold room, and the stiffness of the metal chair that he was sitting on certainly didn't help. He gave a small nod in approval before being escorted by the flipper to a much larger room down the hall of the police station. As they entered into the room, Pablo saw that it was certainly better than what he had expected it to be. The room itself was painted a bright blue and pink pattern across the walls. Large pictures of various rides and cartoon characters were lined up in small rows, about 3 for each wall. There were multiple toys scattered throughout the room, with a large toy chest practically overflowing of various toys and games for children of all ages. However, one thing was sure to Pablo. He was much too old for most of those things. In the middle of the room, there was a sofa surrounded by 3 rocking chairs and a large wooden table in the middle of it all. Needless to say, it was a very well-made room, a lot nicer than the blank, gray, and lifeless interrogation room that he had been earlier. Detective Maria grabbed a hold of Pablo's flipper and led him to one of the rocking chairs and sat him down gently. As not caused the already injured avian any more of the kind of pain he already was. Once they were both settled down, the detective immediately pulled her recorder from her pants pocket and turned it on. May 24th, 2013. Time, 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Subject interviewed, Pablo. The detective spoke into the microphone part of the recorder. Pablo looked at the recorder with a hint of confusion on his face. Detective Maria immediately noticed this and said to the young blue penguin, "Oh, you don't have to worry, Pablo. This is just for our interview, that's all." "Oh, okay." But Pablo began, but stopped halfway through. "What is it, sweetie?" Detective Maria asked, concerned. "Well, is that going to help you find a guy who... Pablo's eyes began to tear up as he started to sniffle. "Killed my friends." "Yes, Pablo," Detective Maria said with a warm smile. "It will help us get the information for what we need to catch the person who hurt you and your friends. All I ask of you, Pablo, is to be honest with me and leave nothing out, okay?" Pablo sniffed once again, but was soon handed a box of tissues to wipe his eyes and blow his beak. After doing that, he smiled and nodded a yes, before carefully lying back on the rocking chair. "Good, Pablo. Thank you for letting me do this, by the way. You are very brave for doing this," Detective Martha said. "You're welcome," Pablo said, smiling back. "Okay, so Pablo, I want you to start from the beginning of when this all happened," the detective said as she placed the recorder on the table and pulled out the same notepad and pen from her pants pocket. Pablo took in a deep breath and then exhaled, and then he began to recollect his thoughts. "Well, it started about a week back, and me and my friends had just finished for the last day of school. The sound of the school bell ringing for the first time rung throughout the halls of the elementary school like water on a beach. Normally the sound would be just yet another time to go home kind of deal. However, this time it sounded like multiple angels singing angelic hymns at the gates of heaven. Almost immediately after the bell, every single child from the kindergarten to 8th grade all let out a joyful, 'Yay!' Countless pieces of papers, pencils, erasers, and other school-related items flew into the air like confetti. However, in one classroom's room to be precise, the excitement for the now upcoming summer vacation could be heard all over the other students in the whole school. Now, children, you all have a wonderful summer vacation. I'll hopefully see you again in a few months, she said as she opened up the door for the students. Almost within an instant, the entire crowd of children practically ran out of the room like a stampede of water. Almost the entire crowd. Once the dust cloud, that is the children, finally cleared, Mrs. Park noticed that only 2 of her students were still in the classroom, Pablo and Tyrone. They were both getting everything the 2 needed of them and leaving everything else behind in a neat pile. "Well, Pablo, ready to go?" Tyrone said as he zipped up his backpack. "Oh, you bet I am," Pablo responded back. "You still coming to our camping trip tomorrow night?" Tyrone asked. "Of course I am, Tyrone. I wouldn't miss it for the whole world," Pablo said with a very high dose of whimsy. "Awesome. All right, now that we're all packed up, let's get out of here," Tyrone said, running towards the door. "I beat you to it," Pablo said, running after him. The 2 of them continued to run towards the door, however not before they thanked for teaching them. "Oh, you're quite welcome, you 2. You both have a great summer vacation," she said as she ruffled the fur. She said as she ruffled the fur feathers on both of their heads. With all that said and done, the 2 of them both walked out of the room and into the still crowded hallways. They both desperately tried to get themselves to the crowd of the screaming and laughing kids. However, any attempts to try and get themselves even remotely close to the doors failed miserably. "How are we going to get to this crowd?" Pablo said, concerned. Well, I guess we could try and... Hey guys, wait up! Tyrone was immediately interrupted by a voice calling out to them. Neither Pablo nor Tyrone could see who had called out to them, but they definitely recognized that voice. Guys, where are you? Another voice called out. Uniqua, is that you? Pablo called out through the sound of screaming kids and teachers. Yeah, it's me, Uniqua replied loudly. Hang on a moment. Not very long after that, the crowd had finally died down to a point where everything had finally grown quiet. Both Pablo and Tyrone looked up from the spots they had been trapped in and saw Austin and Uniqua walking over toward them. Hey guys, Austin says he adjusted his backpack. Hey Austin, both Tyrone and Pablo said in unison. So, you guys ready for summer vacation? Uniqua asked in a cheerful tone. You bet we are, Pablo said excitedly. I see that you tried to beat the crowd, Austin says. He pointed over towards the now diminishing crowd of children getting on their respective buses. Yeah, let me tell you, never gonna do that again, Tyrone said, wiping some sweat off his brow. Austin chuckled a bit. Well, if there's one thing I know for sure about this school, is that you shouldn't try and beat the crowd, at all. If you do, then you might get crushed to death, Austin says. He walked up to Pablo and picked him to his feet. Thanks, Austin, Pablo said. No problem, Austin replied back. Once Tyrone was back up on his feet, all four of the Backyardigans started making their way towards the set of double doors down to get onto the bus. However, Pablo stopped dead in his tracks and looked over to the other three and asked, guys? Where's Tasha? Pablo asked. Yeah, good question. Where is she? Tyrone asked. Last time I saw her, she was still in class getting everything in her backpack, Austin said, scratching his chin. Oh, for goodness sakes! Hang on, you guys, I'm coming! Tasha said as she ran down the hall at breakneck speed. Hey, Tasha, glad to see you're not going to be missing your bus today, Uniqua said. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Tasha said, trying to catch her breath. You okay, Tasha? Pablo asked. Yeah, I'm good. Anyway, we're all still going to that camping trip tomorrow, right? Tasha asked. Of course we're going, Pablo says. He and the others made their way onto the bus. Great, because I'm already have my stuff ready for tomorrow, Tasha said in a matter-of-fact way. Why am I not surprised? Tyrone had whispered to Uniqua, who in turn started snickering. What's so funny? Tasha asked in a slightly annoyed way. Oh, nothing, Tyrone and Uniqua said in unison before bursting out laughing. End of flashback. You seem to have a very close relationship with your friends, Pablo, Detective Maria said with a small smile. Oh, you bet we were close, Pablo began. We've all been friends since we were. Fact, our parents went to college together back in the 80s, and we were best friends to each other. Heck, from what my mom told me, we even had our own sorority group together. I forgot what it was called, though. For the first time in a few days, a smile formed on the young penguin's beak. Not a half smile, nor a forced one, but an actual, genuine smile. Detective Maria felt a great sense of warmth when she saw Pablo smile. But she knew that she had to continue with the interview. So Pablo, did you by any chance have any kind of feelings toward one of your friends? Pablo blushed a bit before beginning to start fiddling with his flippers. Well, Pablo said, still blushing. It's okay, Pablo. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. But you don't have to worry about any judgment or anything either, Detective Maria said. I did have a crush on Austin at the time, Pablo said softly. Did he know about your feelings toward him? Maria asked. Yeah, he did. He actually felt the same way about me. He was just too shy to say anything about it, Pablo admitted. I see. Now, Pablo, I'd like to ask you, can you tell me a bit more about your friends? Sure, Pablo said. Which one do you want me to talk about first? Well, how about we start with Austin, then we can work down the line, Maria said. Okay. Well, Austin, for one, is a very shy kangaroo, especially when he first met all of us a few years back. Which I guess was understandable at the time since he was only 4 when we first met. Eventually, he got more and more comfortable with us as the months went on. But it took some time to have him come out to play with us. In fact, there was even a time where he didn't come out of his house for at least a couple of weeks because he was that shy. Of course, after about a year or so, he started to hang out with us a lot more. He still had his shy moments, but they were very rare. Now, another thing to know about him is that he was very smart. In fact, he wouldn't have surprised me if he was a genius. The first time we met, we found out that Austin, despite only being 4 years old at the time, was already in first grade, while most of us, minus Tyrone and Tasha, we were still in kindergarten. What grade was he in now? Maria asked. He was already in 8th grade, and he's only 8. By the end of summer, he'd already be in high school. What else did he do? Maria asked him more. Not only was Austin very smart, but he was also very talented too. He even made a fully functional robot that never breaks. He'd even talk to you like an actual person would. Despite all of his smarts, though, he was a very humble person, which also goes hand to hand with his shyness. Never once did he ever brag or shove his grades in our faces. In fact, he actually wanted to help anyone, including us, with anything regarding schoolwork. He even helped me get my math up to an A+, and I stink at math. The two of them giggled a bit. I was never good at math either, Pablo, Maria said, still chuckling. Now, despite all that, he wasn't perfect. To put it bluntly, he had a lot of issues with himself. For one, he was a very depressed person. There were many days where he would be down in the dumps for some reason. He also pushed himself too far at times, almost to a point where he would lose sleep because of it. There are more, but I can't really remember what they were. Okay, so tell me about your other friends, Maria asked kindly. Well, Tasha was only a bit of a brat and a snob for some time. Thankfully, she managed to get herself away from the bad habit, Pablo said. How is that? Maria asked. Well, one day, after we are all done playing, she started to complain about something that honestly I can't even remember. Well, to make a long story short, she made Austin cry, and it was not pleasant to see at all. When Austin cries, it's honestly one of the hardest things to look at. He's not loud either. He just has this face that looks so heartbroken. Let me tell you one thing. We told her off right then and there. She thankfully got the message, and ever since then, she's been a better person. Interesting, Pablo. Now, are there any good qualities to your friend Tasha? Maria asked. She's really good at fashion, that's one thing. She's also very blunt at times with the truth and doesn't sugarcoat it like most people. Sure, it hurts sometimes, but it's tough love. Not only is she hurt, but she's actually very athletic as well. She can even lift an entire 100 pounds weight with just one hand. That's how good she is at it. She also knows how to deal with bullies as well. I once had a bully take all my money from me, and once Tasha found out about it, woo, she's beat the crud out of that guy. She seems like a very good friend to you, Pablo. She is. It took some time, but she changed for the better, Pablo said. I'm glad she did, Pablo, Maria said, jotting down a few more notes on her paper. Now, Tyrone and Unique were by far the most mature out of all of us. No joke about that. While Austin is very smart, Tasha is very protective, They're both still kids, as are all of us. However, Tyrone is the oldest out of all of us. He's actually 13 years old, shockingly enough. He's probably the best and the most cool-headed person I know. He rarely gets angry except if we're playing a role and has to be angry. He's also very laid back and relaxed as well. Nothing really seems to bother him in any way. However, his laid-backness can be a bit of an issue at times, especially if something is bothering us and we need someone to talk to. Now, don't get me wrong, he is very caring, but at the same time, he takes a bit longer to react to some things. Uniqua, on the other hand, is not very mature, but is also a great person to talk to when things go bad. She's very upbeat, happy most of the time, and honestly wants nothing more for us than to be cheery and bright all the time. Even when we get in fights, she still finds a way to make everything better. You have a very wonderful set of friends, Pablo. I'm sure that you're a very good friend as well to them. Pablo giggled a bit, but then gave another smile. Thanks, I really needed that, Pablo said happily. You're welcome, Pablo. Now, I need to ask you about what happened at the camping trip before your friends went on. Detective Maria's voice took on a more serious yet sad tone once more. Pablo's smile had once illuminated his face with joy and happiness now fell once again into a deep frown. Right, Pablo began. Well, the next day after school had ended for the summer, me and my friends had packed everything, packed and ready to go. Alright, you guys, you ready to go? Pablo said, practically hopping up and down on the floor of his house in excitement. I am, Tasha said, holding up a red and yellow backpack. Same here, Austin filling his water bottle with a sports drink, powder, and water. All set, Uniqua said, putting on a pair of boots. Just gotta pack my flashlight and then I'm ready, Tyrone said, looking for a flashlight. Awesome, Pablo said as he opened the front door. Quick question, Pablo. How come our parents aren't coming with us? Tyrone asked. Well, we're not going to be that far away from the houses. Plus, if we need them, we can just call them on my cell phone. Pablo says he holds up a cell phone in his flipper. When did you get that phone? Tyrone asked. About a month ago. Just didn't say anything about it because I honestly didn't use it that much, Pablo responded back. Once the conversation had ended, all the Backyardigans made their way across the street into the forested area. About 50 minutes into the hike, Pablo saw a large clearing surrounded by trees in multiple kinds. Oak trees for climbing on, birch trees, and even an apple tree of all things. Next to the trees was a small, crystal-clear lake near it that reflected the beautiful sunlight of the afternoon. Hey guys, I think I found the spot, Pablo exclaimed. The others looked towards the spot and their jaws dropped at the rather magnificent view of this campsite. Wow, Pablo, this is incredible, Tasha said as she placed her bag down onto the ground. I gotta admit, it does look rather nice, Austin said as he walked toward the middle of the grassy space. Well, Pablo, I have to admit, you did a very good job picking out a spot for the camping trip, Tyrone said. I agree, Uniqua said. So, who's going to help me with the tent? Pablo said, pulling a large tent cover with multiple back poles. And a flashback. So, Pablo, what did you do on your camping trip? Detective Maria asked. The usual kind of stuff that people do on camping trips. Start a campfire, roast marshmallows, the usual things, Pablo said. Pablo, may I ask, during that time you were all playing around in the forest, did any of you see anything that may have been suspicious or anything? Maria asked with a hint of concern on her face. Pablo thought about it for a moment, scratching the part of his head that hadn't been banged up, which wasn't much but still. Now that you mention it, I don't remember me and my friends seeing anything out of the ordinary. I think the most we may have seen or heard was a shadow or two, but nothing else after that, Pablo said. Well, okay, that's good, the detective said. But if you're ready, Pablo, could you talk about what led you and your friends to you know what? Pablo took a deep breath and began to shake as the thoughts of that horrible night where he went through his head. Okay, Pablo began. It all started after we had all woken up. Flashback. The first few golden rays of sunlight crept through the small opening of the zipper that wouldn't close. The rays of light has landed itself into Pablo's face as he groaned and started to awaken from slumber. What time is it? Pablo said as he looked at his watch on his wrist. 8:45 a.m. The clock grunted once more and tried to sit himself up, but he found it almost impossible due to the fact that Austin was curled up next to him, still asleep. The young blue avian smiled and gave the purple kangaroo a small kiss on his nose. Austin, as a reaction to the kiss, slowly opened his eyes and saw Pablo smiling down next to him.